Similar type example for 42, we're going to change this into a matrix, solve using row operations. So the matrix is going to begin with, let's go this direction, 3, -1, and 7, and then 9, -3, and 21. This is your initial augmented matrix. Everything was in the correct order when we began. We want a 0 in this position where the 9 is currently, so we're going to multiply the top row by -3. So -3 times row 1. This is my directions so that I understand how I'm getting my answers. So -9, and then 3, and then -21. The bottom row didn't need to change. Okay, because now when I add my two numbers together, I'm going to get a 0 in that position. So my next idea, row 1 plus row 2, and I'm going to write my answer now on that second row, which is why I wrote my instructions next to the second row. Did you notice that I'm writing my instructions next to the row that's going to be changing? So that top row is going to stay the same this time, but the bottom row is going to be the result of adding the two rows together. So 0, 0, 0, everything changed to a 0. This is a different type of answer, right? This is not what we were used to. We're not used to seeing an entire row of zeros. So here's what this means to you. What this means is that you have an infinite number of solutions. And if you remember back in the first section of this chapter, we learned that when we have the same equation given to you in two separate ways, but it's the same basic graph, your two lines are on top of each other and you have an infinite number of solutions. Everything on that line is a solution. Okay, so that's what's going on right now. So if I rewrite my top row as an equation in the same order for x, y, and equal sign, the bottom row is an equation. Technically, this is what it would look like. 0 is equal to 0. Okay, so that is another reminder of why we've got an infinite number of solutions. This is a true statement, like we saw in 10.1, so we can decide that the equations that you were given in the beginning actually represent the same exact line. And so you're going to write your solution set to be all x, y combinations such that 3x minus y equals 7. Or you could have written such that -9x plus 3y equals -21. It does not matter if you write this as your criteria or back here in the beginning, or this would have even worked. It does not make any difference how you write your solution set. Now, word of caution here, if MLP gives you a setup where it begins with the set of all x, y, such that y equals, I can't remember what the initial setup is, but if you're given this as your answer blank that you need to fill in with your answer right there, you will need to go back to any of these equations that I've highlighted and solve for y. So this looks to be the easiest one. If I solve that equation for y, it would say something like y equals 3x minus 7. And that would be what your solution set would consist of. So whatever MLP does, you'll have to follow suit. Number 50. All right, this is going to extend our discussion now to a third variable and a third equation. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is write my system of equations as an augmented matrix. Everything is in the appropriate order. I don't need to rearrange anything. So just pull off those numbers. Okay, now here's the idea. We want a 0 in this position first. I don't need to do anything. I can take that -2 and add the number right above it as it is. I don't have to do any changing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The only thing that's going to change right now is that second row. Everything else stays the same. Don't do too much at once. The only thing that's going to change is that second row, and that second row is going to become the sum of the two rows, the first two rows. So you're going to get 0, 3, -2, and -7. The next step that you want to achieve is to get a 0 in this position. Now this involves a little bit of work, and I did not leave myself nearly enough space. I might need to insert some spaces here. All right, so it's a 3. And the only thing I have to change that is the top row, because if I play with that second row, that 0 is never going to change from 0, because I'm not allowed to add numbers, right? My row operations only allow me to multiply by numbers. So no matter what I choose to multiply 0 by, it's always going to be 0. And so your only choice right now is to play with that top row. That top row currently has a 2 in that same corresponding position. And so if you were to multiply the top row by -3 and the bottom by a +2, that will give you a -6 on top and a +6 on the bottom. And then in the next step, when you add those together, you will get your 0. So the top row, I'm going to multiply everything by -3. The second row will not change. The bottom row, I'm going to multiply everything by a +2. Okay. The next thing you want to do is add the top row and the bottom row. And your answer needs to go on the bottom row, because that is where that 0 needs to appear. So the only row that's changing this time is the bottom row. The bottom row is going to get replaced with the sum of the top row with the bottom row. Top row plus the bottom row. Top row plus the bottom row.